Thank you so much for joining us on today's Public Good App House, where we're going to be learning about apps that address food insecurity in our communities. I'm Nicole Jones from TechSoup. With us today, we have Ben Shaw from Ask Izzy.
Wonderful. So this is an introduction to Ask Izzy, and I am Ben Shaw. I would just like to start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nation, who are the Indigenous owners of the land on which I live. This is something we like to do in Australia increasingly. For those who haven't seen it before, that is a map of pre-colonial Australia. I would just like to pay my respects to the people of this land and perhaps ask you to reflect on doing the same. So we've got 5 minutes. I'm going to quickly go through who am I. I'll do that in about 2 seconds. What Infoxchange and Ask Izzy is, and take you through how it works and some things that we're working on next. Yes, I'm Ben Shaw. I'm the product manager at Ask Izzy. Product manager is a newish sort of role that we're building within the social innovation and digital inclusion branch of Infoxchange. And it's a sort of exciting time for us to be working on some things like apps and things that work to help people experiencing food insecurity and other sort of vulnerabilities that we know are around in this year, 2020. Infoxchange is something that started in 1989 here in Melbourne, Australia, with a crisis accommodation bulletin board service pre-internet. And over the subsequent 30 years has sort of evolved into a tech services company that supports the community and not-for-profit sectors. And then in 2014, we actually won a Google Impact Challenge to take some of the amazing sort of directory and information and data that we had and package that up in a package that actually worked directly for help seekers. So rather than just working with the community sector and the social services sector, delivering something directly to people in need of help. This started with a real focus around people experiencing homelessness and rough sleepers. But over time has really expanded to acknowledge the fact that anybody at any time can find themselves in a tricky situation and need to find help nearby. These are our freshly baked stats from last year, last financial year for Australia. So as you can see, we're looking at millions of searches a year, and food is this by far and away the biggest category that people are looking for. Obviously, we know that it's also very interconnected with some of these other things, and that just getting someone a meal does not equal food security. Certainly during COVID and the long lockdown we've had here in Melbourne, we've seen things like everyday things and money help really start to lift up as people sort of move beyond, well, I've got a meal in my stomach, but actually now I've got all these other sort of things that I need to address that are going to make me feel like I'm secure and not sort of slipping further into crisis. Great. So Ask Izzy is hopefully on your screen right now. A couple of things. This is actually not an app. It's actually a website optimized, obviously, for mobile things. Happy to talk at length after this about why we chose to go that route and why we may one day choose not to. But for now, askizzy.org.au will bring you to the site if you want to play along at home. Pretty simple interface. There's a free search, and then there's this sort of series of categories that we have on the homepage. Obviously, because we're talking about food security today, probably helps look at food. You'll see a little thing around our beta and pandemic support that I'll hopefully talk about at the end. But essentially, there's a few pretty simple questions that's going to ask you. Where are you? It's obviously a key one. What kind of sort of food support you're looking for? And obviously, depending on the category, there'll be a range of different questions. We might ask questions around age or potentially other things around your situation that help us find you a better result. But for food, ultimately, it's just about where can I find it? And you'll get a list of services. You can see them on a map, and you can sort of dive deeper into any one of those to sort of see some information, link to Google Maps, that sort of thing. We have around, the number is somewhat subject to change, but over 370,000 services across Australia, across a bunch of different categories. And I suppose our special sauce really is not any magical tech. It's the fact that we are funded by philanthropic partners and by government to actually update this data. So we have a team of updaters. We are working on automating and working with APIs and that kind of stuff. But really right now the grunt work is done by a bunch of people who sit there and call people and Google search and work really hard to make sure that our data is sort of as up to date and robust as possible. And I think that's really, we talked to a lot of people in the sort of directory space, and they sort of say, how do you do it? And that's sort of the key answer is at the moment, we've just got to have humans, because there's so much nuance around, I suppose, opening hours, particularly during COVID, what's actually available now, how are they acting now versus later. These organizations don't, necessarily have the time or inclination to come and update our directory, so we need to be very proactive in reaching out to them. One thing I will just very quickly show you, I suppose, so with coronavirus, and as some of you may know, Melbourne went through, I think, one of the longest lockdowns in the world, and we're just sort of coming out of it now. We've obviously been very busy during that, finding out about the way that people's needs have changed, the kinds of things they're looking for have changed, and we've started to put together a bit of a beta that really explores more around how people experiencing vulnerability due to COVID might want to navigate these kind of services. And as others will know, probably much better than I, the profile of people seeking help has sort of changed. A lot of people seeking help for the first time. A lot of those things that were spoken about by Jen, I believe, about stigma and not wanting to seek help. So we've started a beta that we're starting to sort of explore some different options around there, more sort of information provision, different ways of getting people to the information and sort of making sure that they're getting the help that they need. Yeah, so if you want to know more and get more involved, I can't believe I left the actual Ask Izzy URL off there, but askizzy.org.au, take a look. You can read more at about.askizzy, or you can even try a beta. And we are in discussions with a bunch of partners all over the world at the moment about how we can sort of take our learnings and what we've known, having been in the space for about 5 years now, to help others scale their reach and impact. So more than happy if you reach out to me. Thanks very much.